Yeah.
All right, and we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Geek Book Club, the club what geeks talk books about. We've got a very special follow-up episode. We just recently, well, guys, did you not get the memo that we were going to do this in VR chat? Is that...
I did.
Yeah, Anabong's got his on. I mean, I know I'm slumming it with, some mixed reality, but it's still pretty...
I just got a graphics card here, so this is actually just all rendering right now in the chat.
So, I am the Oasis.
Okay. I'll take this off.
I am the Oasis. That's all you need to know.
All right, but no, we welcome back to another episode of the Geek Book Club, and this show we've got something very special in that we're doing our follow-up. So just last month we did a twofer on Altered Carbon, talking about the book and then comparing that to the Netflix adaptation, the show that they made on Netflix following the same property. And this month we're doing the same thing with Ready Player One. We already did a full discussion. This amazing crew of gentlemen to come on and talk about their experiences reading the book or listening to the audiobook. And now we're going to do the same thing where we talk about the film adaptation, which is just released last week, right? In theaters. Mm-hmm. This is the first full week that we got to go and do the fun of catching Spielberg revisiting this sort of 80s and 90s kid experience, and what our thoughts were regarding that translation, that adaptation, and just if we felt it was true to the story or if it strayed too far for our tastes. I'm sure we're going to have a very lively discussion about this property. I, of course, am Juan Carlos Bagnell, some gadget guy on the Twitters, joined as always by with my co-host, Mr. Andrew Wallace at Fat Produce.
Greetings. Whew. Yeah, I am damned excited about this episode.
You've been lit up. I've been getting some very excited direct messages and tweets from you on this one. So I think we'll be well joined in this discussion. Of course, we also have Mr. Warren Bowman from BW1.com.
What's up? It's about time. I'm excited. Let's get to this argument and
well, and there was already conflict. We were already getting spicy in the discussion leading up to the show. And of course, we've got Thunder E bored at work. How's it going, buddy boy?
Oh, I am excited to jump into this goodness right here.
Yeah. And last but most certainly not least, the bored Buddha himself, Lou Ra. How's it going, sir?
Doing well. How's everyone doing tonight?
Oh yeah, we're all lit up. This is gonna be good. This is gonna be excellent.
Can I say one thing? Lou's camera is
jump right in. I'll just sit here and ramble on, man. Let's get this started.
No, Lou's camera. Just look at Lou's camera. He's centrally located, like smack in the middle.
Yeah, because he looks like one of those basic Google Hangouts help videos.
I know. That is just perfect. Look, his centering is perfect.
He's even got that perfect like business grade headset. He's like,
hello.
I'm assist you with your technical support issues today.
Hello.
Don't know about all that extra stuff, but okay, let's do it.
Hello. I'm going to tell you guys about our YouTube algorithm and how the algorithm works today, and give you the advantages of optimization.
that we can't tell
fancy slides
because then we'd actually be assisting you in making better videos and products, and we're Google, so that can't happen. So but we're not talking about YouTube's shenanigans on this broadcast. We are talking about Ready Player One. Anabong, you left us off at the end of our book review with a little bit of a tease, your experiences, and I mean, if you wouldn't mind just kind of recapping that, what you told us, what to expect. And then I want to start getting into sort of the plot of the film from there. But you left us off with some very sage advice after reading through the book.
Yeah, I said it was an adaptation, and it was very entertaining. You will be entertained, is what I said. And keyword is adaptation.
Not even an adaptation. That's loosely based adaptation.
No, I disagree with you all because it truly was an adaptation. Now, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it could have been great as an adaptation, and they failed on certain things. So I didn't base it off the book because I just knew it wasn't going to be the book in the first place.
So one of the things that I want to kick off right to start, What were your experiences seeing the movie? I think I ended up seeing the movie in maybe the worst possible way. I went yesterday for an 11 a.m. showing because that was the only time that I could get my butt into a movie theater seat between a bunch of different projects that were coming up. And there were 3 other people in the theater with me.
That's how I watched it.
That's
That's
awesome.
how I watched it on a Sunday. What it was a Friday. I did like the earliest one, like 11:15. That's how I watched it. There were 3 people.
Yeah, same here on Monday.
And I was okay with that.
Damn, I would have enjoyed that viewing better. I was packed that.
Really, you guys think so?
7:40 at a 7:30 showing, and thank God for assigned seating.
I want to compare this. So Anabong, you saw it like pre-release, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw it pre-release. I saw it with a mixture crowd. I saw it with maybe, I would say probably that crowd, maybe about 20% had read the book. Okay. And the rest were some journalists was about 20%, and the rest was just, you know, people who do pre-release viewings of movies. Just a lot of people who do that in New York. It was a very energetic crowd because those people. Thank you, Warren, for moving your table. I was like, where's Warren moving to? I had an energetic crowd. My crowd was happy to see every game that they play in there, to see the video game elements of the movie. So my crowd was like excited.
So here's my early guess. Here is my hypothesis as a film fan and as a reader of books who gets super cranky about book adaptations into moving images. I feel that those of us who caught it in fairly empty theaters probably didn't have as much fun as you did because of the energy of the crowd. I am super sensitive to the movie theater crowd. If it's super empty, I kind of wish that I would just be able to watch it in the comfort of my own living room and not go to a movie theater. When I go to a movie, I kind of want the energy of the rest of the audience. I think a perfect example would be a film like Paranormal Activity. If you watch it at home with friends, that movie sucks. But if you watched it in a packed house full of people who wanted those good jump scares, then that was a stinking fun movie-going experience. And I kind of feel like I didn't get the good Ready Player One experience because the 3 other people in my house were dead. I would be like an obvious joke would pop up on screen and I would kind of chuckle. But I mean, like, the joke just dies in the vacuum of empty audience space. Because I also saw it in an IMAX 3D theater, so there's just cavernous.
Let's talk
totally empty.
Let's talk about the first mistake: IMAX and 3D. The 3D part.
So it was, no, I'm serious. It was not by design. That was literally like the closest movie theater to me. I wanted to make sure like I was, you know, I don't like being too far away from my daughter's daycare during the day, just in case I'm a paranoid parent. I'm going to be a helicopter parent, I feel. But then also it was like the earliest showing. That was the one that I had to take. So I took that, and I don't feel like the 3D contributed anything to this story. I don't think it helped at all, but I do like IMAX sound systems. So IMAX audio was flipping baller for this movie. That I am actually, that was a nice perk, but it totally, I got the double whammy of the 3D was and the crowd was and the movie theater was mega empty. And again, it was this Grand Canyon of emptiness, just sucking all of the energy out of the film.
Yeah, like I probably had about 10 people in my theater, and I think I'm the only person in the theater who got the Spock Wrath of Khan casket reference at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
And it was
nobody got it in mine.
Up in the theater all I wanted, and no one cared.
No one in my theater, which was packed, got that. Yeah, it's only Sam and I were like, That one is hard. That one is definitely hard.
That was my favorite reference of the entire movie.
Well, and that burned you out quick then.
Yeah.
So that's my guess. I just kind of want to do like a quick rundown. We already have a couple people in the live chat. I see Mary P, Gansy Tech Nerd, Funkin to Techie. Already throwing out a comment. Typical Spielberg, great ride, but not quite a masterpiece. I kind of feel that sums up what I feel this film could aspire to be, with a great audience, a fun, energetic house, a bump in sound system. I don't know. How are you guys feeling? Just overall, just sort of a general summation, what you thought of the film, if this film were to stand on its own merits, not necessarily getting into the comparison with the book. I'll start off with Lou. Lou's been quiet.
The movie visually was great. The story sucked. I was disappointed. I'm just sorry.
And we're done here. Let's wrap it up.
That's what I get for listening to the book. It's kind of what it's done with me in The Walking Dead. And that's a shame, because the first challenge really took me out.
Right. Warren, how did you feel about just overall, if you had seen, if you could imagine seeing this film in a vacuum, how did you feel about Spielberg approaching this kind of content?
It's like he was still in the 80s, like he was still directing from his 80s, and it just kind of went. It was a great movie, fun ride, loosely, might as well call it loosely based, because the adaptation is just the wrong word for this thing. And it was okay. It was okay with a lot of, like, if you were better off not reading the book. You would probably, if you don't read the book, you have no idea what's going on. This is the coolest thing you've ever seen, probably.
And I agree with that.
And then the second you go and read that book, you will come back and look at this movie and go, "What did they miss the opportunity to do?"
Sorry, let me get to Andrew. Andrew, your thoughts as my book reading compatriot through most of our misadventures. How did you feel leaving the theater after Ready Player One?
I can't help it. Like, it's very true. Having read the book, you know that there is a better plot out there for this story. Unfortunately, it was very visually stunning. I really enjoyed the music a lot. Like, there was during the actual car scene, chase scene, like at the very end, did you guys notice the little sound, like every time they hit? And that was straight from Back to the Future. From Back to the Future. Like a lot of that was really good. A lot of the little things were great, but it felt like I got Ender's Game vibes from how they compressed everything into this movie. Like, the timetable was just really sped up, and it jarred me.
It went too fast.
Yep.
The movie went absolutely too fast.
It was a fast 2 hours and 10 minutes. Oh, yeah, something like that.
And I'm surprised by that. If it being a 2 hour and 10-minute movie took go as fast as it did.
Yeah, because the full runtime is 220, so
220,
like you got 10 minutes of credits because of all the CG artists.
Yeah, it takes me back to our discussion that we had with Altered Carbon about how having even if it's just a mini series, is a better form for a lot of literature adaptations. And this confirms it for me. Like, both Ender's Game and this, with some exceptions.
So
I have to disagree there for a little bit, because so I had this discussion with Sam, and I said, yes, the perfect form for this would be Netflix, like we said, 3 seasons, 6 episodes, done. But for what they wrote, I think Spielberg missed a couple of things. When I say a couple of things,
I mean turning it into a film.
I
think I know where you're going with this, Ian, and I think I agree with you. But
yeah, you put a grind in at the beginning. That's all I need, is a grind in for that first challenge. The second challenge is exactly the second challenge in the book. For all you book readers, it's just a different movie. Just call it what it is. That's, to me, it's the same thing. And the ending needed to be less cheesy and just straightforward. I mean, it's not that off. It's just that they messed up there, because I actually was afraid they were going to show more real world scenes in the movie, and they actually spent more time in the Oasis than I actually thought they would. So it was that aspect on the adaptation. Now, I still would like to see it on Netflix or HBO, and
So that becomes the blessing and the curse of, I think, tapping a director like Spielberg. Is you like how I get super cranky about J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. For a vast majority of movie-going audiences who weren't super diehard Star Trek fans, those movies are really fun. I feel a Rian Johnson Star Wars film is really fun and disruptive, but I'm not super into Star Wars. So I can appreciate why diehard Star Wars fans don't like The Last Jedi as much as I did. Like Last Jedi really
please.
worked.
The fans of that, they're just stupid. They want this and want that, but they don't realize what Rian Johnson actually did. They have all that EU lore built up, and this is what they really want.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is like in terms of just like the general movie going audience, you get the blessing and curse. You got a Spielberg film. You didn't get a Ready Player One film. You got an 80s style.
And by the way, all the challenges.
You get a great version of that.
All the challenges were different.
Yeah.
No, I say it's the same challenge.
It's not.
Number 2 is the movie. It's just a different movie.
Well,
that's what I mean. I mean, it's. No,
the third challenge was the
horror film, which is hilarious.
No. The third
challenge was more of a movie. That was the whole month.
No. Wait. What movie was a challenge in the book?
It was
War Games.
War Games.
Yeah. War Games. They just changed the movie.
Well, but they weren't acting the movie though.
Yeah, they weren't acting the film.
There was no way they were going to act the movie.
All right.
Again, like I don't look at it. That's my difference. Is that I didn't see them doing that because it would be too expensive visually. I get it.
But you know what I think? What I think is funny though is for too expensive visually, because we didn't get very much of. So that's one of the major changes. So the second challenge, we can go through the plot of the film here in a bit, but because we're on this point right now, in the book, the second challenge is actually enacting every moment, every scene of War Games as the main character.
Yeah.
And here you got the Spielberg flavor of that. It's super condensed. It's really on the nose, and you're just thrust into The Shining. Now, here's what I think is really funny, though, is Spielberg as a director tends not to stray into rated R territory. I couldn't for the life of me understand why we got a horror film thrown into the middle of Ready Player One when that had, like, that to me would have been as far from what Halliday was all about, what Halliday was into.
That scene has a whole bunch of irony to it. That's why it's just like, oh, here's this. You know what it is. Nostalgia. He.
Yeah, I mean, but that's
and it was also H as well was like the whole joke with H in that scene, especially with the elevator and all the flow of blood was like the punchline for that whole scene.
Well, I think you have to understand that also that a lot of this movie, even with that scene itself, was relatability with, like you said, this present audience. Right? One of the things that I didn't like with the ending, and it goes even somewhere to the scene, is the fact that everything has to be dumbed down for audiences nowadays. Just everything has to be simplified to the most basic order. Right. So The Shining was a perfect way to get that, throwing jokes, adding a little self-deprecating humor, and then connect the movie script together, as opposed to War Games, which nobody will remember as a movie.
No, I mean, I get that. I think one of the things that bothers me about making that decision, because I agree with you. I think it's a very, it's an on-the-nose nostalgia, studio-driven decision, not something that I feel holds.
They could have chosen any other 80s movie that was some type of kids references to it that would have been better. They really, they could have went 90s and really joked on us and did like a Three Ninjas remake or something like that.
See,
which would have been funnier. Which would have been funnier and most.
I think to you again. I'm separate. I've split my mind at going with the book. I agree. As a general audience, I'm looking at the other way and going, I know why they did this. This is not
The Shining.
It's not for me. It is not for me personally. It's for everybody else to enjoy.
But
we also assume that people that are going to watch this movie, which they've referenced, remember, a little bit newer pop culture, knows what The Shining is.
The Shining is...
No, it's not. That's not everyone.
Well,
that's not everyone in that generation knows.
Shining is well known.
It's more well known than War Games.
The Shining taps exactly. The Shining taps something that War Games doesn't. In that, I don't think you could go to any general movie-going audience member, old or young, and say, what is an iconic scene from War Games? I think very few people would be able to recall Tic-Tac-Toe or Whopper or anything like that. But if you go to anyone and say, like, can you can you just name something that's in The Shining, even if you haven't seen it? And I think you would find far more.
I bet you they won't even know what's from The Shining. I bet you they don't even know the twin things from The Shining. They've just seen it referenced. They've just seen it referenced a ton of times.
But the thing that bothered me about that scene was how disposable it was, even for the movie being self-aware that they had changed that from the book. Because you get Wade's line that this is his 11th favorite horror film. Okay, 11th? That's the movie that we're using? Even in the logic of the film, that's kind of And then we get Artemis's line, oh, the movie that they're in doesn't even matter. It's all about him taking this leap, or taking this, his big fear about missing out on this regret. And it doesn't even really have anything to do with fear. It's about regret. And the movie is a non sequitur. So it didn't even matter. So it's the movie is aware of how inconsequential the trappings of this challenge are, when there could have been a great red herring moment, if I take it back to like War Games, because that's in the book and that's why this is so readily available. But War Games, his greatest fear was thermonuclear war because of War Games, and that's so scary, and this is the thing. And maybe they couldn't get the licensing, maybe they just didn't care to spell it out for the audience, it's not iconic enough. But there are so many other 80s properties that I think could have been wedged in there that would have fit better with the tone of the Halliday that they created for the film. Because there's nothing else about the Halliday in this movie that's into horror. There's no other part of his psyche, of his personality, no other references to it, and everything else.
Could have went with the Terminator or something like that.
The Halliday in this movie, Halliday in this movie was like a little wholesome Minecraft player. You'd imagine, he's like, I just want to create and build things,
But he was the perfect Halliday. It was exactly what you expected Halliday to be.
And Halliday is like the voice of Spielberg. I mean, Halliday, I feel like, had Spielberg's voice coming out of him. I just like to create these magical environments for children to appreciate my film. This just felt like such an odd turn for the sake of making an absurd turn. It didn't really feel like that gelled with the rest of the environment that Spielberg was trying to create.
I mean, like I said, I would disagree again. For the movie, it fits.
They could have used aliens.
They could have used it, but it goes back.
I really don't think The Shining fits in that whole world. I think it's an oddball outside of the film and the rest of everything else. I think it's such a different. It's such a different turn and feel when they're in that, because the second they jump into something else, nothing at what they just finished with that matters.
And especially
as Juan said,
Shining is a film that people often use to make a statement. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you're talking about how the director Kubrick was tasked with faking the moon landing. If you're a horror fan, you're talking about how poor a translation the movie is from the book, but how many people find the movie to be superior to the book. And if you try and make an accurate adaptation of The Shining, it's not as satisfying a movie as what Kubrick did, which is hilarious in a film that's an adaptation of a book that is being criticized for the quality in the adaptation of the book.
Maybe that was Spielberg's point.
The movie isn't trying to make that kind of clever an argument, and throws away the nuance of The Shining being such a powerful, iconic film for something which is utterly disposable for the characters in this story. That nothing about The Shining contributes to the puzzle. It's only the backdrop for Halliday's fear of kissing a girl. That to me is a wasted opportunity. And I mean, to your point, Warren, then I think it instantly becomes, you look at a property like Alien and you swap out Sigourney Weaver for the love of Halliday's life, and all of a sudden you've got an instantly more accessible character-driven dynamic where the backdrop makes sense for including the characters in that moment.
I'm sorry, but that felt more Ghostbustery.
Oh, Ghostbusters reboot?
Not even the reboot, just more like a Ghostbusters. You're in The Shining 1 second, and then to save the girl, you were dealing with dancing ghosts. That felt Ghostbusters.
Dancing zombies.
Oh, they should have had proton packs on the side and have that actually be part of the challenge. That would have been kind of fun.
Well, because zombies.
See,
aren't
now
really,
you're getting to the way you're thinking with this movie. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to tell you guys. It doesn't follow any logic that you think. It's exactly what you just did, Andrea. Like, it literally is. It's that, like,
So,
mixed
so
match
we've
foolishness.
we've already kind of wrecked the second challenge. I'm gonna say right from the get. Usually we save like spoilery discussions until the end, but we already did an entire episode on the book. From here on out, if you haven't seen the film and you're still curious about watching the film, again, I think there's definitely some pro and con argument to how much fun this can be as a standalone product. If you like Steven Spielberg's vibe for filmmaking, I think this can be a really fun romp if you're into his films. But from here on out, I'm going to say spoiler territory, probably throughout the rest of our broadcast, and you've been warned. The general plot still has most of the trappings of the book. A kid in Ohio who's basically in the slums. That I think they did a great job of depicting what they call the stacks, which are literally just trailer homes stacked on top of each other in these really like not even
visually it looked great. The only problem was the stacks played more of a character towards the beginning, and here they were like one and done.
Kind of. I loved, again, we'll get into the full plot of the book, but I loved how they just shoehorn in a climactic finale back at the stacks. Because, like, well, we spent all this money building the set. We might as well use it for another scene in the film, too. But anyway, so this young guy in a world where most interactions, most educational opportunities, most gaming opportunities, business opportunities all come in this Second Life-like world called the Oasis. There's a special Easter egg which has been hidden in the Oasis that people are hunting for this egg, and what's hilarious is it's a literal digital egg. There are 3 major challenges, and after 5 years of this game being enacted, no one has even unraveled the first major challenge until a young man by the name of Wade Watts, who online goes by Parzival, figures out a major clue to the first challenge, and then that sets off this world into really trying to explore and try and figure out the rest of these challenges, because whoever discovers the Easter egg, unravels all of the challenges, will essentially own the Oasis. They will become the major stockholder. They will inherit all of the creator Halliday's wealth, and this is like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory on steroids. So Parzival unravels the first challenge, and then through this camaraderie with some of his other fellow online gamers, they then have to fight a major corporation, IOI, who has an army of people that are all trying to figure out the challenges too. And they're working against incredible odds with few resources, and the entire world is out to get them. And then they go through proceeding to crack the other challenges, and it all culminates in a massive online battle royale. And of course, it's all chock full of your favorite 80s, 90s, and even modern pop culture references, video games, movies, comics, and that's kind of Ready Player One in a nutshell for both the book and the film. But how would you say, Warren, because you're back now, we talked about just sort of in general terms. For me, one of the major deficits is scope. How grand the book feels versus how on the rails the movie feels. If I'm using video game metaphors, the movie feels a lot like Doom 2, where the book feels a lot like Far Cry 5.
Wait, what feels like Far Cry 5? I heard it and I completely missed.
Oh, we lost Warren again.
So what feels like Far Cry 5?
No, the book feels like expansive and immersive, and there's a lot going on. And we actually got another comment in the live chat from Funkin' Tateki, talking about the dystopian aspect of this world didn't really get much attention in the film. We were sort of clued in that, oh, well, this is sort of there was the bandwidth wars, and there was an energy crisis, but we don't get a lot of the feel of how that impacts daily life. We spend a lot more time in the Oasis. That's a lot more fun. That's a lot more visually exciting and satisfying. So that to me, sort of like the movie feels like it's the book on the rails. Like you don't get a chance to explore any side quests. You don't get much exposition. You're just on this one very narrow path. We're going to follow that to its completion. And it's a roller coaster. it's a fast roller coaster ride to get you to that point, where the book gives you much more elbow room and a lot more room to explore.
Yeah, it's just the lack of time for it was a big thing that bothered me. But yeah, I mean, they got the visual world building pretty well. Like the only hint that I really got of their energy crisis was everyone's driving smart cars. You know, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, there didn't seem to be any problem powering like really advanced, immersive, full body haptic suits for VR. Like you just did that. Everyone was sort of fun.
Yeah.
Whatever computer power you needed, you could get.
I will say, and we talked about this earlier, all the modern VR players right now absolutely missed out on marketing opportunities. HTC or Oculus or Microsoft should have had their name slapped on every single Oasis viewer.
And I know that Warren disagrees.
Yeah.
Yes, I do, because if they'd have, the problem is that all the gear was made by IOI, so they're portrayed as the bad guys in this. So I don't think any of those companies will want to slap their name on a bad guy necessarily.
Yeah,
they don't want
faceless corporate enemy of the creative, fun, plucky protagonists.
Yeah, they don't want to be the ones, because trust me, the media will spin that into some story. I could just see in a Gadget or Verge story saying HTC sponsors, it sponsors all the equipment and Ready Player One.
Evil Sorrento's equipment.
But are they really the bad guys? Maybe they are. Let's take a look at how evil they really can be.
They could just fix that by only featuring it on the hero headsets. Right. I mean, their audiences are only going to notice it and then associate it with the.
How hilarious would that line of dialogue have been though? Like, Halliday was so into retro stuff, I'm gonna use this Vive Pro.
That would be cool though. That would be a nice one. Yeah.
It's like covered in dust, and it's like on the shelf. Yeah.
We need to go old school to figure out this last challenge with my Acer Microsoft mixed reality headset.
Yeah. Somebody in the stacks has one made out of cardboard.
Well, somebody just walks in playing cardboard, just the cardboard.
Oh guys, this VR stuff's real cool.
Throwback. I mean, that's what they were. They would do old school and throwback things, which I think is something that they didn't highlight a lot in the movie. That they went into H's basement once, and that really was just fan service. They really didn't do a whole lot there. It was just kind of shoehorned into it.
So I feel one of the biggest aspects, one of the things we were talking about a lot in the book was this is obviously Ernst Cline's love letter to his childhood. Media pop culture references from all of his favorite things as a kid. How do you guys think that they handled the translation to the silver screen? Because there are, I mean, we talked about a lot of them, but there are a ton of, Easter eggy kinds of visual callbacks and nostalgia thrown in. And how do you think that they handled that? Because I think one of the things that I can praise the movie for is this is a very visually rich film, obviously. But do you think that was as successful? Do you think you got a good view of the Oasis being a user-generated space, like users creating their avatars and living up what they think they should look like in this fantasy world?
I would agree. I thought that was one of the best things they did. Just remembering the auntie's husband's avatar, the little girl that got pissed because her avatar. I mean, like, for me, one of the things I loved was that I saw every comic book character, anime character that I could think of.
Yeah. Just
on screen. I didn't have to. And I think, like, even though I like playing Halo, but it was fun seeing 4 Master Chiefs just running.
Right.
You know, I mean, like, that kind of stuff was whoever did all the placements and said, no, we should put this here, put that there. I mean, was fantastic, because what it said is whatever you loved was there. And I think that message got across quite well, because there was a Lego Batman, there was Batman Beyond, there was Batman Arkham Knight, there was a regular Batman in there again. Sorrento's avatar was evil Superman, if most people don't know that. So that kind of stuff for me, I was like, Yes. You know, like everything you could think of, at least on the visual aspect, made a lot of sense. So didn't matter what you wanted to be, you could be anything in the Oasis.
True. Speaking of just that just brought my attention to sort of, I think, the wasted character that IROC was, because he was just there. It's just to be
so IROC is the evil shadow lackey of the main
TJ Miller.
Yeah. From Silicon Valley. So Sorrento is the corporate guy who once used to get Halliday coffee and was never really let into the inner circle, but he's leading this team at this mega corporation with all of these faceless soldiers, the Sixers, and they're going to try and figure out all these Halliday's clues. But he's got his own private side lackey that does all his dirty work for him in the Oasis. And yeah, IROC just felt like that's a very Spielberg sidekicky comedic relief kind of character. That was one of the worst feelings in seeing the film the way that I did, are all of those IROC moments all had sort of laugh beats built into them, and no one in my theater was laughing at anything that was going on.
I said there were 4 of you in the theater, so
right. That's what I mean is like, that's why I almost wish I would have been able to have seen the film at home, because like there's even just the knowledge that there are like 3 other people in this theater and none of us are laughing, so no one wants to make any noise because it's awkwardly quiet. Whereas if I would just at home, I would have chuckled a bit more. But again, that was also a kind of just on the nose archetypical character that I don't know. Ian, you're showing, did those moments get the laugh beats that they built in?
Everybody laughed at IROC, which I was surprised because, but then again, like, I mean, to some of your points, I do agree, but like IROC was a character I forgot on the book quick. So he got more screen time than I expected that IROC should get. Because IROC basically just tattletaled and that was it. Yeah. And in this one, he's a sidekick, right, to Sorrento.
Yeah, but it would have mattered more if he was in that group and then went back and snitched. He was just kind of there, just being a flunky. And I think that's why his jokes to me weren't all that funny or landed the way they should, because he was a flunky. That's all he was.
Well, they needed. He was a plot tool they needed for certain things, for what they wanted to do with this one. So I looked at it that way, and I was like, okay. I mean, like some of the jokes hit well. Some of the jokes were, I think they were, in my own viewing, crowd energized, because a lot. Again, like people were excited on things that I didn't think they would be excited in my own theater, just because it was more modern, had no connection to the book at all, which is why I was like, most of these people have not read the book, because they should not be excited about any of the stuff whatsoever. But it just kind of fit with the story that went on for that.
Now, did you get that feeling that they just kind of let TJ Miller riff?
Oh yeah. They were like pretty much Deadpool. You did this. Just flow. Yeah. Just do your thing.
Because like his whole shtick is that sort of like, I'm an awkward, pompous nerd man child, and I will say outlandish, extravagant things and probably get something wrong, and then someone will ridicule me for it. Like it didn't really feel like he was playing any different a character than what we've seen in Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he sounded like the Deadpool character for the most part, and it was just like, well, this isn't funny if it isn't rated R, so okay. But yeah, but I think the other thing that's disappointing is that they were already clanned up while trying to not say they were clan.
Yeah,
and they kept trying to push this Gunter thing, and the reference of the high five, which were just signs, and I'm like, none of this was mentioned or built up on. So you can't just, and I think that probably was one of the more disappointing things, because when you're talking about these sort of 80s movies, there's a buildup of the group that you see, because it's supposed to be this coming of age journey. And we really didn't get any of that. They were just already together, but they weren't a clan, but they're a Clan. I'm like, what is this? This is like rappers saying they're not a rapper.
Yeah, I mean, they should have just said they were a clan and call it a day.
Well, not even, dude. They should have. I'm sorry. They could have built friendships a little bit better instead of like Warren saying.
Lou,
that was one of the most.
Hold on, guys. I need to have a moment with Lou here. Lou, you never need to apologize for an opinion like that on my show. I got you right here, man. Right here.
Well, Lou, I totally agree with you on that. Like, they're like the fact that if they had them competing more, as had a little bit of the school part in, it would be kind of 80s where you're starting at that, and then have as they're competing with each other, they kind of grow closer, and throughout like the first half of the movie, and then they can be claned up, and that would have been way more natural.
Yeah, but ultimately, my big fear. Sorry, I'll throw this in real quick and then get out of the way. My big fear from before we were talking about, before we got to see the film, condensing all of this into one movie means you need to eliminate a lot of the potential scope of a film. You don't want this to be a 3.5 hour epic. It's not the right kind of property for that.
No, but I mean,
that's one of the things that limits the kind of relationship building or world building or exploration of this world. Is you've got a lot of story to tell in 2 hours and 10 minutes.
No, I do agree. I think and I was talking to Warren about that. I go back to going, if you go back to the first challenge, he shouldn't have figured it immediately. It should have been, that's where you throw in your grind and you mix in all the friendships in there, and then you are done.
The problem with we lose all of the competition between Wade and Parzival and Artemis.
Yeah,
so there's a lot more conflict between those two characters, and I think you're right. If we could have front loaded that, their relationship at the end would have been better earned.
The problem with that is the screenwriters weren't all that. I think they wrote themselves into a bad situation when they wrote the part when they said that this race only shows up at this time. There's only one time of the day or one time or 4 times a day that it can actually be done, versus they could do it unlimited amount of times, as many times as they wanted to go and do the challenge.
I mean, even if you did it that way, though, each time it's with somebody else. I'm saying that's how you build the grind in. It's like it's with Daito. He has a discussion with Shoto. Go back to H again. If you just did it 3 or 4 more times, and it goes back to where it's like, oh shit, click.
Or actually, I'll even give you. We could have done this one run through the race as a montage to at least show the passage of time. So we wouldn't even have to have given up any more actual screen time from what they dedicate in the film. You get the race started, and then you do that master cut of how far each of them makes it in their respective individual races.
Montage.
And I think you actually could have achieved the same feeling. See, that's what bothers me about movies like Ender's Game. They do an absolutely terrible job of showcasing the passage of time, because it almost reads as if it happens in one continuous sequence, that Wade, H, and Artemis all run the race. Wade immediately goes to the Halliday Museum to learn more about Halliday, gets his big clue, comes immediately back to the race, and figures it out. It plays as if that is an unbroken time sequence, all one day in the life, when I think the film is trying to tell us that could have been 3 real world days of activity. And it doesn't read that way at all. It feels way too immediate, that he loses, he figures it out, he wins.
Yeah, and one of the things they could have add to that is that they did that in some points, but at one point is going back to Wade talking, doing the monologue and talking about how like he just spent how many hours and he needs to take a break, whether he even crashed in the little van, like something like that which breaks the time from, and then just takes you back and you go, okay, all right, so they've actually spent time, and it makes sense now. You can throw in those little parts. Actually, you front load it, then everything else can just flow through, because now it's about, okay.
Well, and that's instantly, I mean, I don't mean to hit this movie too hard for it, because I think it actually handled it better than most, but that's a big pet peeve of mine, when a filmmaker doesn't have enough confidence in the audience getting into the world, and they front load exposition with voiceover, inner monologue, which is never returned to as a storytelling construct later in the movie. I think montage, I think showing, not telling is much more effective. And there were a few moments in this film that I feel suffered from also the George Lucas effect. There's an evil woman character that works with Sorrento, it's her job to
not in the book.
But it's her job in the film. I think she's effective in the movie for abbreviating a whole bunch of stuff from the book. But it's her job to wax people in the real world. So like she ties up all of the dirty loose ends for IOI. She's a fixer. She's a cleaner. And she doesn't have any problem killing kids. They have this one sequence by a whole row of VR machines, which looked like it was totally cribbed out of one of the Star Wars prequels. It's the most boring walk and talk. And they're just walking on this tiny limited track of green screen and then just cutting and walking back and then taking the same stroll through all of this exposition and all of this storytelling when they could have been showing us how evil IOI was with some other kind of mechanic. But instead they dedicated time to that, but they didn't ever return to Wade's voiceover to help abbreviate some of the storytelling. They never gave us any other passage of time montages. There's so many other tools in Spielberg's toolkit that went completely untouched because we were just so focused, so on the rails. This is the story. He figures this out. He figures that out. He gets this. He gets the key, unlocks this lock, big planet war, and we're out. And that I feel was another missed opportunity that you even gave us a time abbreviating construct by giving Wade an inner monologue exposition device that we could have used that later on too, just to help us get through some of this discovery.
Let's see how much of this will be on the deleted scenes.
Yeah, that's another thing I noticed. So there were some very interesting cuts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe Spielberg actually shot a much longer movie that at least fit this framework much better. And, they cut. Because there were some things where, like, even when he went to II office to talk to Sorrento the first time, before Sorrento blew up the stacks, there was a conversation point where that felt cut, that there was a bomb and he just was like, oh, and he ran off. And like my theater, nobody noticed it. They just kind of took it, which is weird. I was like, we were both sitting out going, Sam and I were going,
well, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's something going on. Everyone was just like, whoa, which is why I said the audience of today is allowing this shit to happen, because I get it more than anything else.
I want to be kind here, because I do think they made some good decisions in taking a book and turning it into one film. But this takes me to one of the live comments, and I'm glad this is from Jonathan Honeywell in the live chat, because this is my hypothesis. The same thing with Ender's Game, I think, happened with Ready Player One, where there is a very natural break point in the book that would have made for a two-part movie. Jonathan Honeywell writes, do you think they could have made two movies, a part one and a part two, to get more of the book in? There was so much which they glossed over. And I think, you could have done Ready Player One, Enter the Oasis, and Ready Player Two, first to the egg, or whatever the phrase that you wanted to use is that.
So,
and actually, Lou, I want to start with you, because you replied to Jonathan Honeywell in the live chat with, I make sure I don't want to misquote this, with yup. And I feel
that was dangerous, though. That was real dangerous.
I feel we're all probably in general agreement that we might have different places where we would cut the book into two films. But Lou, how do you think that they could have expanded or told two stories out of this property?
So just ask Peter Jackson. He could have helped you.
No, let's not go there.
Because I have a lot of friends who are diehard.
No, I mean, it's easy. I mean, again, like I personally am trying to go away from the book. I look at this movie and I go, I know where they went wrong in this movie, and I could fix it, because they just didn't show, like we said, the friendship, the grind, and the other half of it was also the way the movie concluded. Some of those things would have made certain things better. So, for instance, when we look at when Wade is captured by the Resistance, whatever. I mean, it's a bad idea to have a Resistance, but whatever. he immediately just kind of moves and like towards Artemis without any restraint. And that doesn't necessarily show from the, if he had done a grind where at least you could see that relationship building, then it would be more normal for him to do that. But then again, like I said, my audience didn't care. So I like mentally I'm going.
Neither did mine because none of them there read the book. I was trying to tell my son this movie was hot posh compared to the book. And they're like, well, you shouldn't have read the book before seeing the movie. I'm like, well, I don't want to hear that crap.
Problem solved. I mean, that's a smart kid right there.
But
that is super logical, man.
We know that from the first challenge to the second challenge, there's that nice long gap. They could have done a movie, part one there, establishes that, because I'm sorry. The fact that Artemis kidnaps him took me out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, we want to expand on that. In the book, Wade is captured by the
IOI.
In the film, Wade is captured by Artemis, who is running a little mini rebellion against IOI.
Let's make a slight correction. Wade got himself captured by IOI.
Purposefully.
Purposely, yeah.
Well, again, because in the book, we've got time to establish that Wade becomes a massive celebrity, like one of the world's biggest celebrities for unraveling the first riddle, for solving and winning the first key first. So that puts him on this giant scoreboard in the Oasis. He's hyper visible at that point. It's like winning the lottery. What they miss out on in the film is the time between solving the first riddle and the second riddle. Wade lets this celebrity get to his head, and it's kind of like what was it? Like Rocky 3. Like he's not in the game anymore because he's kind of up his own butt about how important and how famous he is. But that gives other people a chance to beat him to the second clue. So there's this great. It takes time to get through that. And by the time we get to the end, Wade conceives of a plan to really disrupt IOI's efforts in trying to unravel the third clue. Here, it's just sort of happenstance that because Artemis has been captured by IOI, that she can be their woman on the inside to disrupt what's going on with unraveling the third mystery. And it feels very convenient that she's in a position where she can do that work. It wasn't through some kind of brilliant plan that the team comes up with. It's just, oh, well, she's there. Well, now we can have her do stuff now that she's there. It doesn't feel nearly as well earned because we didn't have the time to go through that hero's journey, the hero win, the hero lost, the hero's redemption. That happens in the book. It's a nice up and down arc for Wade as he goes through that process.
And the other thing, I'm sorry, but the laundry van had to go.
Yeah. Well, the whole, and like
that's not gonna. Oh, well, explain what you mean by that again. If someone were comparing the book and the film,
we get H. She's supposed to live in an RV, but yet she's living in a quote unquote like a laundry truck that transports cleaning clothes and stuff like that. It all fell out of whack. The fact that they're all bunched up together from jump feels out of whack. You get that nice moment when, which one was it, Shaito or Soto dies in the book, but
that wasn't going to happen. That was never going to happen.
I've got stuff to talk about that too in here in a little bit.
That's a real bad thing. That there's no gravity to the situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunately with that.
The only gravity we got out of it all was the fact that his aunt died with that loser boyfriend of hers.
And they're set up with these sort of pitiable characters.
But the older woman was supposed to die in that too, but she shows up at the end.
Right. So this right here, this is the first Spielberg film that I've seen in theaters since Crystal Skull. And and these both have really shown me that I feel that there's two different versions of Spielberg. There's the director Spielberg that we all know and love, and then there was Grandpa Spielberg, where he wants to the hard edge of his films are he doesn't really put a hard edge on his films anymore, and it's a lot of it probably has to do with just he's a grandfather and he likes making a little more family friendly, sort of stories.
I disagree on that with Spielberg. Spielberg has done two things noticeably. when it comes to his commercial films, he does this stuff. He does this very general. When it comes to the smaller ones that get nominated for Oscars, they are very well done. So I think he's separated almost, and he's done like two ways. He's like, I'm going to try and win an Oscar here, and then that's for everybody else.
Well, one thing I just think that's winning an Oscar for would be visual effects.
I think he would have been better off producing this and not actually directing it.
Yeah, who would have been a better director for this?
I just really would have liked to have seen some hint of mortality from a Spielberg who did movies like Duel, who did movies like Jaws, who did movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where there's suspense and tension and horror elements, or the Indiana Jones films. I mean, before Crystal Skull. There were opportunities here where I think we could have showcased how evil IOI was, but I think he erred on let's digitally remove the guns from cops in ET and replace them with flashlights, Spielberg. And I think that was an unfortunate step. If we're really going to celebrate 80s cinema history, 80s kids films were all about like actually killing kids and putting them into perilous situations, and
they could have killed they could have faked the death. It would have been better off just faking, and he shows up at the end, because that'd have been the greatest corny 80s ending to this.
I mean, like when Dieter shows up in the gun.
I was fine the whole time. No, but that's you know what they also could have done is, this is a world where your avatar doesn't have to reflect you. H is actually a really sweet element of the book, because you make an assumption about H's character, and then that turns out to not be who that person is in real life. And I think Ernst Cline, way ahead of writing this book in 2011, this is not well written for joining the conversation that we're having today with like LGBT and trans issues and identity politics and stuff like that. He's just before that time, so the book feels really clumsy when viewed through the lens of today. But, you know, there's no reason why Daito couldn't have been a 60-year-old Japanese man. And then that's who gets thrown off the side of a building. You know, if we're going to make changes to this story and we still want to introduce elements of mortality, I still think there was an opportunity to have that happen in a way that really affects these characters. Again, there's just no time. You're moving through the story so quickly. I don't know where they could have put that to make IOI actually feel more evil and not just cartoony, mustache twirling, melodramatically evil. It would have, if you had just shoehorned that into the current film and only added like another minute of screen time, it would have been a like, whoop, he's dead. Wah, wah. You know, like it would have been terrible. You know, like there's no way that would have played. You would have had to have built that up. The only way to build that up and lead to that, to that actually having some consequence is to add at least another hour of storytelling to the story that they gave us.
I would have been happy with 2 hours and 40 minutes. You could have fleshed out a little bit more with some of the characters. You don't need to build them all together, bunch them as some big Power Rangers group, because that's what they felt like.
Yeah.
And that was very opposite. Like they mentioned Gunther's, and I'm just like, this isn't really Gunthering.
And and that's another thing that we lose out in terms of the scope is that they're the only ones hunting for this egg. No one else.
Them and IOI.
It's the High Five and IOI, and there is. I mean, they don't play a huge role in the book, but there is this grander sense of competition coming from all sides.
Well, let me speak about that. The fact that the biggest problem with I think the third act, the end of the third act of this whole thing, that this isn't there's no player one versus player two. There's supposed to be a battle between between Wade and Sorrento. Yep. And that's supposed to narrate through the entire end of the whole thing. And
it didn't really happen that way.
And it didn't really happen at all. And I think that's because when that doesn't happen, when the Mechagodzilla gets taken down and it's not Wade that's doing it, it defeats so much of the ending, because the whole idea is that the whole idea of video games is player one versus player two, and he's going against a guy that has more. He's kind of got the cheat codes. He's got everything ahead of him. It's like the guy with the freaking loot crates, with all the money to be able to do it. And this kid's just trying to make it somewhat in there with whatever he has. He's had to build from the ground up to get to it, to get to his position. And they didn't really show that. Also, Nolan was much older in this film than I think he should have been. I think because it went for 80s older person. I kind of felt Sorrento should have been like in his like mid to late 20s. It just felt that way a little bit.
I can see that. From
I enjoyed Ben Mendelsohn.
No, he was good. His portrayal was good. I don't have a problem with the actor. I just think the character himself, like if they would have cast, if that was that same person acting, but acting, in 28 or 29 years old, I think it comes off better. Right. Because it can have that attitude of pretentiousness with it, and I think it would connect better with somebody that's in their 20s with the audience.
I'm gonna
versus somebody that's like in their 40s, and just looks like a angry kind of grandpa-ish, baby boomer-ish, Gen X-ish, bitter person that tries to be hip but isn't quite hip to the whole scene.
I would have loved to see I'm forgetting the actor's name, but who is the main antagonist in Robocop? Like that,
That's what I was thinking awesome. About. If you were gonna go old, go with the old man from Robocop. I think I said that to E. They should have gone with the old man from Robocop.
So I loved that idea. So, but I mean, I see what you're saying. Especially, this is me sort of trying, probably not succeeding, trying to separate the book from the film. And I liked in the film where Sorrento was a wannabe contemporary of Halliday, and ultimately he billed himself as being a contemporary of Halliday, but really he was just a glorified PA who would get Halliday. He was
supposed to be a poser, and it didn't come off. He was supposed to be a poser.
It kind of worked for me in exactly what you're saying because of how much my undies are twisted up over things like microtransactions and loot boxes, that he is the personification of pay to win. And Parzival, I think that read. But they didn't translated to the film.
That message, I don't think read as well as it should have, because you didn't have the verses. You just had somebody going around cheating his ass off at every other turn, and I'm like, that's fine, but it doesn't work well if he's cheating and this kid is still beating him every step of the way with him trying to cheat, and he keeps getting around those cheats.
We could have established with any more time for showing how difficult it is to grind in this world. We only got like a 30-second sequence on Planet Doom to show the player versus player aspect.
Let's talk about Planet Doom. Let's talk about that for the fact that that's
exactly why
they made no hint about who got that glove until the very end, and I'm like, this doesn't pay off. Because this says we didn't have any idea that this is the ultimate MacGuffin of MacGuffins that you could do in a film, and it's a bad one because that glove is extremely important to the entire.
Yeah, they should at least have shown that Daito won the glove.
And I was like, where, like,
Although I will say though, my theater went ape shit when the Gundam came out. Like literally, I think some people were crying.
I had a couple people who gasped in my theater when they saw the Firefly class.
Firefly was like the big yell, and then when he transformed to a Gundam, I swear to God, there was like a Gundam section somewhere in that video because literally everyone was like, "Oh shit!"
I'm sorry, but we got Gundam in the book. Yeah. Why couldn't we get Ultraman?
They couldn't get
it.
They couldn't actually get it.
Also, Spider-Man. That's another big thing.
No, they couldn't get to Spider-Man. They couldn't get. They were like, no, we wanted to get those, but didn't happen.
I mean,
get a damn Transformer
or something. Some type of mech Wade should have had. You mean to tell me you mean to tell me Saban wouldn't whore out the Megazord? You mean to tell me that they couldn't give him the Megazord? Let's be real here. If that Megazord would have showed up, we all would have went nuts.
Companies not having sensibility. When the first trailer came out, people were complaining that there's a lot of Overwatch. No, Blizzard has common sense.
Yeah.
They knew very well that Microsoft threw in Master Chief like water. It's just companies who had the foresight. Even Spielberg could not get Star Wars. That's how it was. So it's not. I mean, like I think in this case they tried.
Well, that's because Disney's like we already gave you half of this childhood in this film that we already own. We can't give you the whole childhood.
I believe them that when they say that they made a good faith license.
Yeah, they just couldn't. I think they tried. They said they tried to get everything, and I mean, like I was surprised at how much showed up.
Because I'm sure there was a number on the table for Ultraman that was probably just obscene.
Yeah,
property like Ultraman.
They're like Ultraman.
Okay, you get another big robot. You're not 30 that cool.
seconds in this movie.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about like Japanese-based character. I think they really got the Gundams, and that was about.
Yeah, that was it.
You know,
that's a.
I mean,
but isn't he huge?
But is he public domain?
No.
Gundam.
Did he return?
No, I mean, there are certain aspects of Godzilla, depending on what variant of Zilla. And
well, that was Mecha Godzilla.
No, but that's just it, because it's Mecha Godzilla, and the variation of Mecha Godzilla that they got, that is now actually returned to.
Sure. But also, and again, also I think Warner Brothers can play with their licensing because they make Godzilla movies, so that was easier to get Godzilla in there. Again, it becomes a hard play on that aspect where I give them all leeway on that one. I go, it's tough. I didn't expect them to get as much as they did.
Voltron's 5 lions.
You'd be surprised how to get stuff like that in.
Well, and also, I mean, I think that Voltron's actually another difficult get now too because of Netflix.
Done.
I mean,
I think they did a remarkable job. This is kind of like the Guitar Hero of movies. The insane number of lawyers brokering deals to get just the imagery of some of these characters on screen had to be a formidable.
I also wonder if some of them felt that the property would have been used in the way they would have wanted it to be used, or if they knew about the book, or if they maybe heard some of the movie, maybe not the fans of the way things were going, maybe didn't want to, maybe had it there and pulled out, maybe and said, man, I don't think we want to.
There were lawyers trying to write in clauses that if we let you have Voltron, then we need to have some input as to how our IP
is used. And also, again, you're looking at some people. Disney could probably want some shares of profits. Like it becomes so difficult.
Oh no, it's because you have suits that have no idea what any of this is. They have no idea. They never read the book, so they don't have any idea why it's there. All they know is you want our IP, and we have this standard contracted procedure that we have to do to negotiate these things.
That's why I was like,
anything like that.
When I
ruin everything.
I saw Overwatch. I said Blizzard is a smart.
Played
company.
it right.
They're they're like, we're going to put our stuff in.
But they probably read the book, have heard of it, and probably know the audience is going to go see this, so that's why they threw it in. Same thing in terms of Microsoft as well too. Yeah. But I'm not surprised you don't see too much Sony and Nintendo. That's just how Japanese companies are. They hold tight to their IPs, and that's just how it works.
Street Fighter, I think. Yeah, we saw Street Fighter.
Yeah,
but Capcom needs everything they possibly can. They'll take anyone's paycheck.
Oh my god!
No, think about it. They'll take anyone's paycheck. Sony doesn't really, outside of what Final Fantasy character you're going to give them, and they're not going to give them any God of War person. So that just threw that out of the book, as God of War isn't anything PG related. So that threw anything else that they could throw out of the book from Sony that could actually be put up on there. What are they going to? They weren't going to ask to Crash Bandicoot. I'm telling you that right now. They weren't
Crash Bandicoot in that movie anyway.
Nobody wanted Crash Bandicoot.
I mean, if we got a Mario in there, or even just Luigi cameo, oh man, that would have just been the icing on the cake.
Things that will never happen because of the attitude of them on that side about those things.
Here's my thing. In 5 years, I want to see this thing rebooted on either Amazon or Netflix.
It's gonna
I don't know though. I think this pie's been baked. I think it's gonna be a long time before we revisit this as a property.
Sorry, go ahead.
If the guys at Amazon can bring us Lord of the Rings in 5 seasons, that's their goal. Why can't we get something like this in 4?
It's very simple.
Because I just don't think it's a big enough deal.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is bigger than this. It's just simple.
It just depends on it depends who has the money. It just depends who has the money. If
Well,
somebody has the
they
money,
can make money off of it.
yeah. If they have the money, if they have the money to put this into it, and then know they're going to get a return on it, then sure they'll do that. But that's not going to happen. And Netflix, unless Netflix is going to raise their prices anytime soon, I don't think that's the thing they're going to be able to do.
I actually feel that a reboot will happen. I think this is a prime property for a reboot to come.
But if anything, this is probably going to be an HBO thing because they'll have the money, kind of. They can do it.
But if we're talking, I think it's going to be a long time for a reboot, just because of everything we just talked about. You have to have
the licensing,
licensing.
Yeah.
You have to know you've got to take the time to play all that stuff out, and then on top of that, you're producing a very visually aggressive property where every 1 hour episode of this TV show would be its own feature film budget too. So I think it's going to be a while before
they do that with Westworld, so we can pull it.
Right. But again, Westworld doesn't rely on.
The thing is, I actually don't think we'll get a Ready Player One adapt. I think we'll get some other show that will imitate whatever this is.
Yeah,
and
another property. But you can use this as a translation for like a William Gibson novel,
and they'll most likely do it, but do it better. They'll probably do it the way you'll get what you were supposed to get on there, but they won't have to rely on the pop culture references and IPs to be able to accomplish the same sort of.
Which actually, I mean, a property like Westworld is kind of is cut from a similar cloth in terms of sci-fi fandom, and Wild West sets are cheap by comparison to everything.
Because you are really doing a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That's what that film essentially is, just with the quizzes and the game, like with National Treasure. That's all it really is. It's National Treasure. It's exactly like National Treasure, with just the fact that you get video games, you get Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you mash the two together, and that's what you get Ready Player One with.
Before we get into the end game, because I also do want to talk about how this movie wraps up, because it's a very different feel thematically from the book too. There's one very critical question that we have to answer in the chat here from Matt Lathram. This is crucial. He is going to make his decision as to whether or not he sees this film based on our answers here. Does any character say everything's about to change or some variation? Your answer determines whether I see this film or not. What do you think?
Wade says something like that in his speech.
Oh, the dialogue is so forgettable enough that about the only really
in his
good
speech
dialogue,
he says something close to that.
The only really good dialogue in this film is the speech and sort of Artemis's parts, and that's about it.
I actually like H's very limited role in a lot of the conversations.
Extremely limited compared to the book.
Yeah. And then her little body looking like Krang from Ninja Turtles.
I liked the design for it.
Yeah, that was a pretty.
She was cool. Oops, he was cool.
Yeah, she was cool. You know what? I mean, actually, and again, Ernest Cline clumsily addressing some of these issues that we're very, very much invested in terms of identity politics today. But I kind of feel like maybe she would have told us her pronouns or something in the world of 2045. Like that might have been.
Don't trigger people in a damn movie. I don't know. There's already enough trigger points as it is. We don't need any more triggering to happen.
That non sequitur aside, I do want to get into. We finally have the climactic showdown. Wade figures out how to beat the final challenge, which is, of course, it's not about winning, it's about playing, and this is what's really important to Halliday. It's not about keeping score, it's about discovery and sort of paying homage to these classic experiences that Halliday grew up with. And of course there's also like a final Charlie and the Chocolate Factory test where one of the characters we haven't talked about at all, who I feel isn't well addressed in this film because of many of the things that we've already discussed, time being one of the major critical roles, is Halliday created the Oasis with a partner, Ogden Morrow. And
he was an Easter egg technically in the thing himself.
And yes, he's relegated to the role of Easter egg. In the book, he is a vital aspect of the final end game
Well,
battle.
he's an Easter egg that gives another MacGuffin.
Yeah, I know.
I have
He was extremely meta.
I have a very
Extremely
simple
meta this film.
fix for that Easter egg. But finish, please.
Well, but I mean, just explaining the difference in the book, after our little crew of Gunters is absolutely rocked by IOI. Wade has finally been recovered from having been allowing himself to be captured by IOI. It's Ogden Morrow that they seek out as being sort of the last major influence from the creation of the Oasis, and it's his material. He actually has the infrastructure to help get them back into the game in a serious way. Here in the movie, he's just a series of clips of memories of Halliday's past, and it's sort of alluded to that they had a falling out and that, you know, contracts were signed and Morrow was kicked out of the Oasis. But there isn't really an established storyline of those characters meeting Morrow until literally the last scenes where he just magically shows up at the stacks to again award them the final prize. But I did want to get into, do you think that we, with all of the time that we dedicate to the end sequence, Wade beats Wade discovers the Easter egg in Adventure, one of the classic Atari games, that takes him to a portal where he finally gets to meet the sort of digital representation of Halliday, which again tempts him with this contract. Oh, just sign this, and he's in a room full of jewels and gold. But of course, Wade discovers that that was a test too, and that was the final challenge for reals. Do we think that we milked that too much, getting into the end, hammering those points home?
Well, I want to speak on one of the things that that you just referenced. We didn't talk about the fact that technically they flipped the whole capture scene and put that on Artemis.
Yeah.
Which I think
I said it briefly, but we were talking about
okay, which I think changes some of how you feel about the ending kind of going forward. But they were definitely going for the 80s, like positive. This is the positive
gotta give you that positive message to end our story.
Positive takeaway at the end. This is the positive takeaway at the end of the film. I'm like, this was cool when I was 10. Kids today that are 10 don't even like this.
I disagree. That is what people like. That's like MCU movies. All nice fun games.
No. Stop being a DC fanboy.
No, I'm not being a DC fanboy because they can't make a good movie. I'm not trying to be, because that is what they write. I'm not, forget whether I'm a DC fanboy or not. It's the fact that they write movies like this now. It's got to be a soft message. It's got to be that, we're watching it, we're going, don't sign it because that's not the right thing to do.
I kind of disagree. Marvel doesn't write soft messages like this. This is
who has died in a single Marvel movie? Tell me. No.
Who has
Kilgrave? Oh, that's
not a TV show.
Didn't what's his name die at the end? No, Iron Man 1. What's his name died? Ironmonger died.
I'm not talking about
Ultron. Ultron technically.
Age of Ultron. Yeah.
Yep. Ironmonger's died.
That's sad. A
villain died.
Like
I'm talking about hero died.
Killmonger died.
Boom! Again.
The thing is, I think. I don't lose because they're talking about villains dying. They always will kill a villain.
So here's my thing. I'm actually not against having a nice, warm, fuzzy, happy ending. What I think is kind of problematic for this storytelling is how detached the producers and the director of this movie are from current video game culture. So the final wrap-up is just this weird moment to have at the end. Wade beats the challenges, so he inherits the Oasis. He inherits all of Halliday's wealth. It's just been held in a trust until someone could complete all of these challenges. And he makes the decision to split all of the Oasis with his friends. So it's going to be the 5 of them. And of course, both Ogden Morrow in real life and Halliday in the digital world, I'll give him this, like, that's the right decision. Always stick by your friends. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine. I'm okay with that. It's this last little throwaway coda where Well, we had to make some changes. So we're going to prevent IOI from doing really shady business things that hurt Artemis's dad. We're going to do something else. And then this was really unpopular, but we've decided that we're going to turn off the Oasis on Tuesdays.
Oh, God.
Because kids got to get outside and play more.
Let me tell you what I blame on in this. I don't blame Spielberg. I blame Ernest Cline. You know why? He co-wrote this goddamn script.
Yeah.
So,
well, if he co-wrote it, why did he give him the better ending that he had in the book?
Well, no, the ending of the book was
it's like he still had Armada's ending in his head.
Exactly. And guess the next movie they are making.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this right now. Change that damn ending to Armada. Change it.
I like the idea in the book where you're left with, well, with you had the sense of wonder of and a sliver of hope going, well, how can we change this world for the better at the end?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, and it leaves it open, and that's more satisfying than the cheesy turd that they put in there at the end.
It's one line of dialogue which completely changes all of this from being fan service, nostalgic, memory, all of the great things that we loved about this in an era where colleges are embracing esports, digital competition. You can go to, we interviewed the director of the esports program at UC Irvine. This is real. This isn't just like, oh, I kind of play video games. Man, my parents think I'm rotting my brain. No, I mean, like, this is a full-fledged college course where if you want to delve into law, if you want to delve into health and fitness, if you want to delve into science, engineering, STEM, mechanics, or if you just want to be a game player, that there's a career path that we can now start building kids towards.
I saw that on ESPN.
Right. They're taking this seriously through not only just like the game development side, but also the player side, because it also taps into the athletics department. Why? Because if you're going to operate at an extremely mental high level to win games at the international stage, you can't just be the stereotypical, I'm just the slob gamer on my couch and I smoke weed all the time. Like, these are elite mental competitors. And so to end Ready Player One with this, oh, kids need to get outside and play more in the real world. And that's the lesson that Wade walked away from in this terrible dystopian future where the Oasis is responsible for all entertainment, all commerce, and all education, rings completely false.
Yeah, it's so, like the ending, the original ending, which was when my vision was, because I think at the end of in the book, it's it's Artemis and Wade just kind of sitting out, looking out, whatever, and just kind of talking and looking out at the sun, whatever, talking. Sharing that first, not about the perfect ending to this book,
exactly.
and then montage the credits like every 80s and 90s movie used to do, talking about whatever they solved, and everyone pointing to the camera and showing, hey, everything. This was what happened.
Actually, you know what? You are absolutely right. The rest of the movie, the missing parts should have been montaged.
Like no montages. And the thing is, they should have played it up.
Yeah, that would have been. That would have been, even if you could actually add montages to some of the aspects of the challenges that would show us, right? And where they failed, or almost died, and maybe Shoto saved him here or something like that.
Right.
That would actually add to the element of it. I just wanted to say I loved, even though I actually do not like Chucky movies, but I love seeing Chucky in that.
Yeah,
I mean that part was really fun.
To Lou, when you were talking about the truck that you drove, they're doing a little meta there, because that's a reference to how the IOI trucks were described when they pick someone up for the loyalty program.
Yeah.
So it had that tube on the outside, and I guess that's how they would suck you out of wherever you were and put you into the little thing to capture you or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's where they kind of had it right there. So that's why the truck looked the way it did, because they were trying to reference that.
And they did crowbar in too. I mean, like, so Chucky was a magical item which became a weapon in the film. They also had the holy hand grenade of Antioch, which that's just a reference to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which they didn't do anything with the actual movie in the film Ready Player One, but that is a part of one of the challenges in the book Ready Player One. So there were a lot of, I think, really smart little Easter eggs for people who had read the book, but so much of this is built on Ernst Cline's celebration of his childhood that you get to the end of the film and it just rings so hollow. It's like when you see old people making fun of millennials and you're like, you're way off the pulse, man.
Oh, don't talk about it. I know they dealt with that today if you see my Facebook post.
Right.
Today.
They built up all of this like modern goodwill, merging that with classic nostalgia for 80s and 90s properties. It's all wrapped up in this like we can all get together and celebrate the things that we love, to then piss it away and it's like, oh, but kids are dumb. Right? Aren't kids dumb? They need to go outside and play more and kiss girls.
then this begs the question then, who is this film for then?
That's exactly what I was going to ask, Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, like, because okay, if the message is go outside more, they target. So are they really targeting gamers then? Like as far as then it goes down to references, because most of the people that looks like they're targeting for this movie, young adults, aren't going to get most of these references that we get. So. Who is like it's kind of like working in marketing? That's going to be a marketing nightmare as far as who you're going to be targeting.
I think who they're targeting: casual gamers.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, casual.
Because whoever is in marketing probably likes Candy Crush. So there you go.
Yeah. No, I mean, but
or HQ. What was it? The HQ quiz app.
No. But E, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say?
No, it's right there, because the casual gamer knows all those references casually. I mean, they know who Master Chief is. They've seen Overwatch, even if they have no idea what it is. Right. You know, I mean, so that's why it's exactly that point. Those are the people they want to hit, because they know that if they went super hardcore, they're gonna miss out. So I think
I still think it's disappointing that they didn't have a video game tie into this. They needed to have that.
There's the HTC Vive demo.
I'm talking about like
the Vive itself.
I'm talking about a PlayStation 4, Xbox One, full corny ass game tie. Scott Pilgrim did it.
Yeah,
Scott Pilgrim did it.
God, taking it back to Scott Pilgrim. I'll even go one step further and saying not just casual gamers. I think they were totally stuck in their headspace with Generation X gamers, because anyone younger than that doesn't buy that message, and they came out of a generation of people who they were parented by people who were gamers, so their relationship with gaming is very different. Because I'm in that middle generation. No one wants me. I'm born 1980. Gen Xers don't want me and millennials don't want me. I'm just not cool to anybody. But I was raised by gamers. You know, my mom and dad were arcade junkies. So I always knew a world with gaming in it. And I think anyone younger than me was probably raised similarly. Oh, yeah, I used to play some games too. I had a Nintendo. I know what's going on. I'm hipping with it. You know, and I think that they made the movie for those people, not for the progeny of those people.
I think that I have to agree with it, because I'm like a few years younger than Juan, but I hit like that. Like if you began the millennial, but if you hit that millennial space and where to start it off with, I'm kind of at the very beginning of what you would consider that to be. So I'm in this space where I relate with them and I can understand them, but they do some dumb things. And millennial said, I'm like, you're making us look bad, bro. But then I can go back to the Gen X's. I understand you guys, but you all look bad too. So it's just this weird, you know, I'm like right at that space. So it's like, like I was telling you guys, even for me, the references, I have to kind of like, well, some of this 80s stuff I got to kind of look up because I don't really know, but I feel bad because I'm like, not to put anyone's ages out there, but like E and you will reference something. And I'm sitting here with a blank face, like, is that some 80s? What is? I got to look this thing up. But if I mention the term Ninja Turtles, I mentioned the term Power. I was like, okay, you guys are all into you know that whole thing. And I think the movie kind of goes for the casual person, like we were saying before. But that brings up another question, because this is the second video game centric movie they put out like this. Compare this versus Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Mm-hmm. And I feel I think Scott Pilgrim was more for us. That's more of a us thing because there's a lot of references that are very meta. This was trying to be
mass
market Candy Crush, Super Mario type. Like everybody could come in and try to jump in on this.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World is on the scale of films is more towards art than it is for like just the visual style that they have is more like it's art compared to just pure mass market entertainment. So and I feel like this could have definitely benefited from some of that. Like we got a taste of it in the whole Shining segment because like having some of these references in there would be like say at the end where they're fighting Mechagodzilla, like have it just kind of zoom back and it kind of sort of looks like they're on a
See, I disagree. I trust me. If you put any inch of Scott Pilgrim into this movie, general audiences will just not even get it. I mean, which is
that's fine.
Didn't get
it. Well, that's fine. If they don't have to get everything in a film, they don't have to get every single thing.
I mean, I do agree on that.
But I think they have to. They needed to add more of that meta that we're looking for. Yeah. Because we're going to be their biggest hypers of this film.
I do agree on the meta. I think maybe my issue is with Scott Pilgrim's type of meta. I liked it, and
Scott
I didn't
Pilgrim
like
is
it.
all meta.
It's all meta. Like if you go back and watch that film, and there's like things you got to you have to watch scene by scene by scene.
No, that was my problem with Scott Pilgrim. I got it, but I was like, you didn't give me a movie I could watch again because I just didn't feel like.
Or you gave me a film that I need to be the interpreter to people who aren't as deep into comics. Culture. And that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
Explaining all the jokes, and anytime
it gets in depth, and those jokes get in depth for that whole thing. It's just like, so why is there a P bar here? What?
We lost Warren again.
I
I hope you can join us back again too, because I'm so glad that we turned to Scott Pilgrim as being sort of an anti-Ready Player One, because I want to throw this out there. Scott Pilgrim, I believe, started its publication run in like 2005 and wrapped in 2010. Did Ernst Cline rip off the Extra Life quarter from Scott Pilgrim?
No. I would say no. Simply because
you believe so. E, I'm putting you on the spot here. You believe that Scott Pilgrim and Ready Player One are convergent thought, that they arrived at the same metaphor and the same mechanic independently.
The reason is, as I read the book, I already knew that was, I mean, like I've seen that in books, in movies in the 80s, that it's not something that is specifically Scott Pilgrim. It's just that it's that era. It's that 80s era of like, here's the thing that we need, but I just found it. Like I found it casually, or I got it. I mean,
like finding a magical talisman or something. I agree with you. It's like, this is the exact artifact that I need to finish this part of the quest. But both Scott Pilgrim and Ready Player One use the exact same. Oh no! At the worst possible time, my character's avatar is dead. Oh, but I have this magical quarter which gives me an extra life. Now I can go on and win the battle.
I think
it's a little convenient that Scott Pilgrim wraps in 2010, the comic run wraps in 2010, and that Ernst Cline publishes Ready Player One in 2011.
Okay, how long does it take for you to publish? So let's say it's a year plus. He had to have sent in his manuscript in
probably 2009.
2009. So maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe
I
not.
don't know. What do you guys think? I want to start some controversy on the internet. I believe this is total hatchet. Ernst Cline. I'm kidding. I don't really feel that way.
I can't answer because I didn't read that. I don't even know what that movie's about. Had no interest in it.
No, Lou, we just got done explaining how it's a meta book and a meta movie for us. I mean, you have to know everything that's going on.
News like
just the fact they didn't know.
I'm gonna be gatekeeper. Only real geeks know what's up with Scott Pilgrim.
I didn't read Scott Pilgrim. I watched the movie, by the way. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've only seen the film for Scott Pilgrim. I recommend watching it.
Yeah, I will say that one thing with Ready Player One that, like I said, I personally enjoyed the movie because I literally walked into that theater and I just turned off the book. I cut that out. I just felt that this could have been a masterpiece of an adaptation, like Scorsese did with Infernal Affairs and which is a completely different movie from the Asian movie, which is Infernal Affairs. But I think Spielberg did. To me, I felt Spielberg didn't input where Ernest Cline and Zach Penn, the writers, made mistakes. That is actually what I felt with this.
I think that's fair.
I think both of them were. Ernest Cline was trying not to write the same thing similar to his book. Zach Penn was helping him out, and Spielberg looked at it and goes, "Okay, this is fine. We can work with this." And I think that was the problem.
And eventually, I think you arrive, because I agree with you. I think you arrive at something where it's just too easy. There's so much callback. Again, one of the fears I had, Steven Spielberg is paying homage to himself in a way, because he was a member of that 80s era of disruptive filmmakers that gave us the childhood movies that we knew and loved. Before then, I mean, there was a completely different cinematic language for kids films before we got to that 1980s style. That I think it allowed him to too easily just fall back on his really good but well-established bag of tricks. This feels like a very accessible Spielberg film, when I feel that they could have taken a few more risks or done something a little more disruptive without necessarily betraying the cinematic experience that they.
Damn IOI.
I know. They're just all over you tonight, man. I'm just bouncing you left and right. So I'm sorry, but my feeling, and I agree with you, E. It wouldn't have taken much for me to walk away adoring this as an adaptation. I mean, largely very similar structures to what we achieved, but for me, it just left such a sour taste in my mouth to wrap the film with that one, like, 10 words of dialogue. Yeah. That completely changed the whole tone of this movie for me.
All they needed to do to end it in the film was just bring back the exposition, the Wade exposition voiceover, and just end it with the last line from the book. It occurred to me that for the first time in as long as I could remember, I had absolutely no desire to log back into the Oasis. And that would have been all they needed.
Yeah, that is actually true.
Okay, so they say that line while he's kissing Artemis.
Exactly. There you go. Perfect 80s.
Bam!
Boom.
Bum, bum.
Source material.
Forget about me.
Yes, exactly.
I have to say this for Sam. Sam was highly disappointed.
I was just going to ask.
Because he did not get any rush.
No rush
in this movie. He's like, I just wanted to just hear it. And he didn't get into that. So he was
that's actually what I was gonna wrap us up on. I wanted to know Sam's perspective, because there's a sequence in the book. This is all Sam has been able to talk about. I don't care what they do. I just need to hear Rush. I need to hear 2112. I'm gonna be happy. I'm gonna be good. I mean, every single time we brought up Ready Player One, he will shut the conversation down like, I don't care what they do. It could be like flying pink unicorns and trolls fighting, pixies. I just need to hear 2112. As long as they put in Rush, they had the one trailer. They had Rush in the trailer. This is going to be awesome. Just do that in the film. I'm going to be happy. They didn't do it in the movie.
I know. I mean, like Sam was like, Sam's thought process of the movie similar to mine. He was like, there was a lot that they could have done, but it was fun. But as soon as we kind of covered a few things, he's like, man, I wish, but there was no rush, man. Like,
yeah,
just Sam like walking out the theater like this. I was like, sorry, man.
Sorry, man. Oh, sorry. And I was leaving the theater too. I mean, like being really sour about the last moments of the film. But also thinking like, oh, Sam's gonna be so bummed. They licensed Rush for a trailer, but couldn't actually get it in the film.
What if it was on the cutting room floor?
I wonder if there wasn't some, again, because it's like there was probably a number. You have a bunch of lawyers working out the licensing, and a number was put on the table, and you can do a different number for marketing materials than you can for actual film and soundtrack licensing and stuff. And I'm sure that's just how the deal went down. But for someone like Sam, that had to have burned a little bit. Like, it was in the trailer. They got it in the trailer.
I should actually tell him exactly that. That you said yes, the budget was different for the trailer.
But I mean, it's like getting what is it? Immigrant Song in School of Rock.
Yeah,
where like Jack Black, if you go through the extra features on the Blu-ray for that, they had this whole thing where they filmed at the main concert venue. Jack Black filmed this plea to the band to say, like, we need this song in the film. There's this one scene we want to use Immigrant Song in the movie, and like they're notorious for not licensing their tracks for film, and you almost wonder, like, would that have worked in Ready Player One? Like, Steven Spielberg like jam into some air guitar saying, please let us use your song in our movie. Rush, that would be awesome if that would be all it would take. But I wonder if there was some sequence that they'd had planned to go along to.
I think they needed Sam on a video recording, air jamming with Spielberg next to him and saying he's not in the movie, but he's just a big fan.
He will not enjoy this movie if he can't hear some snippet of
exactly.
12.
He just has a Bluetooth headset in, like just play it. That's a little earpiece. So
oh my god, we should totally do like a downloadable riff tracks for Ready Player One, and all it is 2112 on loop.
Wow.
Oh man, that'd be awesome.
Sorry, Sam.
Sorry, Sam. I mean, on so many levels. Sorry, Sam. So let's wrap this up, because again, I mean, like, what's hilarious is I feel like between talking about the book and now talking about the film, we've talked more about this film than the film actually runs. So
really?
Before this one individual podcast gets completely out of hand, I just kind of want to wrap this up. General thoughts. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of criticism. I don't feel we could have avoided that. We read the book first, and like Lou, to your point, especially to your son's point, like, that's going to set up expectations, and it's really hard to have a fantasy world that you built in your brain and then see what someone else's interpretation of that world is like. And I feel that's always going to be a clash. It's always going to be a conflict. And I feel some producers and some directors can handle that better than others. But you're talking to someone, if they've read the book, if they haven't read the book, how does that change your recommendation on this movie? I'm going to start with Lou.
I'll still tell them to go see it. I mean, like we had a little discussion in the chat. If you got the movie pass, definitely go. It ain't going to cost you nothing. It ain't cost me nothing.
Ain't nothing but time, son. Ain't nothing but time.
But it was a movie that I wanted to see. So we went, we saw it. Did it live up to my expectations? No. But that's because I read the book. If I didn't read the book, then I would have enjoyed this movie immensely, because visually it was great, and I would have known nothing that was going on. So, that's my fault, but at the same time, it's not my fault.
So E now, and because I mean, we teased this a little bit. We talked about this during our discussion of the book. You've got two different people in front of you. Again, someone who's read the book, someone who hasn't. How do you sort of talk them through or prepare them? Because I feel the person who hasn't read the book is a much easier discussion when it comes to this movie.
I do agree. I mean, I would tell both people to go see it. The one who hasn't read the book is easy. I mean, like, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to see a lot of references that you know, and the story is very simple and easy for you to get along with. Person who's read the book, I tell them to keep the book in the back burner. Understand that which is why I said it was an adaptation, and you will be entertained as my keywords when I use that day, is because no matter, I think one of the things is, even if you call this the most unfaithful adaptation, what this movie does is that it has not just a few moments. It has a lot of moments where you go, I geeked out on every DC hero I saw. I geeked out on when Goro picked up Parzival and then Ailing popped out from her chest. I geeked out on when he wore the Superman outfit, the glasses that,
the Clark Kent,
There's so much of that in the movie that helps this movie, especially for people who are fans of the book, because that is the best world building moment of Ready Player One, the movie, that the book could never do. It visually shows you exactly what this world is, from the power ups to, and some of the things like even the end sequence when he's fighting Sorrento and he does an Hadouken, even though that's not in the book. I actually like the fact that you could actually build in certain power ups into your character and just use them. So that, I think, is one of the things that really helps this movie a lot. It's a very natural play to what you want to do as a character. So I would tell people that who haven't read the book, people who have read the book.
And Andrew, what do you say to, you know, two different audience members considering the Ready Player One film experience?
Well, and I mean, I'm going to mirror a lot of what he said, has said, but one thing I will say I mean, yeah, you're going to have to make a separation between the book and the film, like when you go see the film, because otherwise you're not going to enjoy it. It definitely affected my enjoyment of it, but there were some other things on the film side that, even to just a film goer, that I would have them look out for. Just the fact that the story progression feels very rushed, and the final and the second half of I'd say the second half of the film feels extremely convenient. And there's a lot of stuff that's super convenient, and that drives me crazy. And it's
very few earned moments in the last third of this film.
Mm-hmm. And then like the complete mismanagement and basically adding out of nowhere Morrow's involvement in the story, like heavily, like it out of nowhere is just bad writing.
Can I say something about that quickly?
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, I like I said, I could solve that problem easily.
Yeah.
This is my problem with this movie.
Ask us. There were so many things that we could have helped them with, and all they needed to do was jump in our podcast and be like, bruh.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with having Ogden Morrow as the curator, yeah, I thought was genius, just poorly used.
Is he just there all the time though? Like,
yep.
No, but he thinks. I mean, he could have hinted that he jumps in and out whenever he wanted to, like at the end. But it's something where that each time he said something, he came to visit him, you drop in a line of dialogue that pertained to Og constantly throughout, whether it's from the book reference or even from the clips themselves that we saw, so that we knew that he was the curator, or at least you got the hint. And I think the best part they should have done is that instead of him betting for the coin, I think he should have actually gone the date. Then the bet would have been a Pac-Man game.
Yeah.
Just that. And then, and then later on he mentions he won. We don't see the coin. And then we get the one-up coin at the very end. I mean, man, I should be a movie writer. God.
But again, I mean, the main problem, I think it was the big fear was whether or not they were willing to take risks with time. And I feel like they got just so focused on the main input that they ran into a very similar problem that I found with Ender's Game. And it's to your point, to your point, Andrew, even for the person who hasn't read the book, I think I would want to preface and say, I think this is a visually brilliant, fun, lighthearted, cotton candy adventure film. It's just, this movie's on the rails, and it's going to move you through this story very quick, and it won't always be able to pay off relationships in a way that might be satisfying. But what you're in for is largely a great celebration of gaming and pop culture. Even though I think it ruins, I won't tell them. I think it ruins it in the last line of dialogue in the film. That's the conversation we have after they've seen the film. But to that point, also, I mean, for the person who's maybe considering both properties, we got this question from Mary P in the live chat. Should you read? Should I watch the movie first, then the book? And I think for maximum enjoyment, I think the film is an hors d'oeuvre of this world, but visually brilliant. And I think then you could take that, go into the book, and have, I think, a really well fleshed out experience, a very accessible visual idea for what this world could represent. And I think that's probably the best way to approach both.
Yep.
I would agree. I would agree. It's a great appetizer to start the whole meal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, like, and as a palate cleanser, maybe dig into some like William Gibson, like just like wipe it all fresh and then go back to the book and be like, man, this is super neat. But we're getting on 2 hours and the movie is only 2 hours and 20 minutes. So we're gonna wrap this up. Gentlemen, I want to thank you. Unfortunately, we did lose Warren. Just he was having some internet connection issues, and it doesn't look like he was able to recover and get back in. Warren Bowman, bw1.com. He's a phenomenal tech reviewer, tech commentator, lifestyle gaming stuff. You definitely want to check out his streams, his videos, and his commentary too. Writes some great articles. Enabong and Lou with On Board and with Board at Work. What kind of projects are you guys working on? What can viewers expect to see from you guys in the coming weeks?
This weekend, as if Lou is ready, we're going to drop our first phase of Marvel MCU movies. We are watching them in proper chronological order, not when they're released, but when
You've been watching.
I actually have. I don't know if Lou has.
I honestly could tell you, I just don't care to watch them over again.
Oh God, you bastard! You said you were going to do it with me. Now I find it out. Sorry.
I got stuck with the move, and then I started watching The Shield, and I find The Shield more interesting.
Anyway, this weekend we are doing our chronological look with the MCU movies. So we're going to have a show every week. The first chronological order starting off with Captain America: First Avenger, Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, moving over to Thor. Moving over to the Incredible Hulk, Thor, then the Avengers. So 6 movies, which I have watched all in one day. Sorry.
And
a
I've
lot of
watched
watching.
6 seasons of The Shield.
No, I mean, I've watched them already, so it's literally like kind of playing in loop while I do other stuff. So
Okay.
it's much easier to do that.
I was gonna say, I mean, I don't know that I would have the fortitude to last their focused rewatching of.
I will say this: I actually appreciate the first Thor movie over the new one as much as people love it. Just throw that out there.
I mean, I don't want to hold this too long. We definitely need to have an off-air conversation because I only just recently got to watch Ragnarok.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like it.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk afterwards.
Yeah. After that. And Andrew, as we are the co-hosts on the Geek Book Club, what are you working on? Any projects coming up? Or we've got the actual.
Yeah, like I've got on my Twitch channel, I've been playing some old retro games. I've just finished up the PlayStation version.
His Twitch channel at Fat Produce.
Yes. I finished up the old PlayStation Medal of Honor series on there. Yeah, super clunky, but still super fun. Then I'm getting a copy because I lost my other copy.
Did you actually? How did you connect your PlayStation to Twitch?
No, I mean to Twitch. No, I'm using an emulator. And then I just mirrored up there.
and he, now that he said that, the FBI just kicked in his door.
Well, no, technically, you know, I'm actually using the disc, but so now I'm getting in another copy, and I'm going to move to the next one at some point here soon. Medal of Honor Frontline, get that old good one on there. Then
I have to admit, you're brave to go back to those old graphics like that.
They were fun. They were great. Like one of the things I loved the most about this series is the music. It was composed by Michael Giacchino, who did the J.J. Abrams Star Trek films. He started out in games, which is what drew me into the Medal of Honor series. So yeah, it's just a passion of mine. So, so we're working on that. Then, really not much else. You can catch me on Instagram at Fat Produce and on Twitter. And then next is going to be our next book for this month.
I mean, I was also leading you in.
Yeah.
No, because I want people to check out your game streams too. But I was also because
Oh yeah, no. But
podcast.
Oh yeah, well we've got. Don't worry, we've got Master and Commander.
Wow,
this time around.
Wow,
so.
we brought out a ship.
Oh yeah.
I just realized I was being a terrible audio podcast host. Like Andrew was holding up a gorgeous model sailing vessel and the cover the actual paper book of Master and Commander.
Yeah, I'm quite excited. Actually, this is one of those ones where this book, well, this is talking back about seeing the film first versus the book. Like that's what's happened with me. So
totally, me too.
This, so yeah, so it's one of those things where like watching the Russell Crowe film really opened us up to the whole world that was created that gets more fleshed out in the book, and we're really excited to cover it.
And I'm going to throw it out there to our audience. If you're following us, after we've streamed this live, if you catch us on Twitter at the Geek Book Club on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, drop us a comment and see if you would like us to also do an adaptation chat, because the story on the Master and Commander film is kind of an odd one as to how many books are in the Master and Commander series. It's a 10-book series.
20 and a half.
Series.
Jesus.
I'm off by 2.
Yeah, it was well. So they went through all like 20, and then there's an unfinished one that he didn't want anyone to finish, but he died before he could finish it.
And it's a hard series to get. I tried.
I mean, I'm only a couple pages.
Yeah, this is the most British book you'll ever read.
It's very British. But if you guys want us to try and tackle that as part of the commentary, definitely drop us a comment on our socials, or you can also email us, thegeekbookclub@gmail.com. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Again, I want to thank all you guys for joining us here. Annabong, Lou, unfortunately Warren couldn't rejoin us. But thank you so much for joining us in the second part of this conversation, watching what happens to the media that we enjoy as it gets changed into other formats, into other experiences. I think is always an interesting conversation to have, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time, especially with you guys being East Coast, and it's a lot later for you than it is for me.
It's early.
Oh, thank you very much.
So, folks, this is going to do it for another episode of the Geek Book Club, the club What Geeks Books Read. And we're going to be joining you again, our book for April, Master and Commander. And you definitely want to come back and check that out, too. And if there are books that you'd like to put on our list, drop us a comment, and we can talk about what future novels to read through as we read a book a month through this wonderful world of geekery, science fiction, fantasy, and storytelling. Again, Geek Book Club around the web, the Instagram, Twitters, the Facebooks. You can email us. I am, of course, at SomeGadgetGuy if you want to harass me directly on the social media. And we will catch you at the end of the month. We will be posting the recording date a little bit later once Andrew and I have gotten a little bit further through the book. But we'll be posting the recording date on SomeGadgetGuy.com, where you can find out when we'll be live streaming Master and Commander. And I hope it'll join us for that conversation, too. Again, thanks so much for watching, and we will catch you all on the next episode of the Geek Book Club. Bam.